Well, good morning, everybody. I've been informed it is 9:30 in the morning. If councillors could come to the table. Welcome, everybody. Welcome the public. And for all those watching this morning, no mai, haere mai. And we will ask Councillor Gould if he would open our meeting with a karakia. I asked this morning, are there any apologies? And I have received an apology from Councillor Sturt. You move? Second, thank you. Any further apologies? There don't appear to be any at this stage. Could I put the motion that the apology from Councillor Sturt be accepted? All those in favour say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No, appear to be none. Are there any urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor Gould.
Chair, yesterday, we all got an email about the air quality bylaw review, which is the minutes from yesterday's meeting, but in it didn't cover recommendation number 2, Madam Chair.
That off, I think, on the when we actually vote on the item. Yeah. That'd be right, wouldn't it? That's when we cover it. Thank you. Yeah. No, it'll be covered in open. The recommendations. No, it wasn't. No, yes, plan change 10. That's not something that we're... Yeah, we are today. Yep. So, in confidential. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was always going to be up here today. It'll be on the screen. You've really got to accept that officers had to roll up the workshop recommendations and that. So we'll have it on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Gould. Do I have confirmation of the council meeting on the 27th of July? A mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bentley. That the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of July be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Seconded. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now we move to recommendations from other committees. That's 18. I ask for a mover and a seconder that the report, recommendations from other committees be received. Just need a mover. Councillor Kent, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Hunt. Now better turn this way too. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. We go to recommendation 2, or to point 2, that the recommendation of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting on the 10th of August be adopted. I'll read out our recommendation 1, that we will be voting after a mover and a seconder. Recommendation 1, electoral systems, that Council adopt first past the post for the next 2 local elections, 2019-2022, that Council adopt the random option for candidate names on voting documents for the upcoming election, by-election, and the following two local elections, 2019-2022. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Gould. The motion is now up for discussion. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be voting against the first past the post option. I do not believe that we have researched it sufficiently, and the reasons given by some fellow councillors as to why we will obtain it is not a very good reason at all. And I think we should have investigated the STV voting much more thoroughly. So for that reason, I will not be voting for first past the post.
There appears to be none, so I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Contrary? And you wish it recorded? Do you wish it recorded, Councillor Hunt? I hear it was a very good presentation from Mr. Lamb. We now move to recommendation 2. I need a mover and a seconder. I'll read it first. Thank you, Councillor Gould. Recommendation 2, that the establishment of a co-governance arrangements for the Tukurangi Forest, that an initial co-governance arrangement with CNI iwi Holdings over the Tukurangi Forest be established along the lines set out in the report, attachment 1. Moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Is there any discussion on the co-governance? No? Thank you. Well, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And I understand that Henry Weston will be coming before the committee in the future about whatever the discussion leads to and bringing the co-governance structure to us. Now, recommendation 3, a mover and a seconder for the motion that Civil Defence Emergency Management recruitment to alternate local controller position, that the Council the endorsement of nominations of the following staff to the appointment of alternate local controller Bruce Horn, fixed term contract, Community Resilience Manager, and Marcus Goldsbury, Maintenance and Compliance Lead, HSR. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rotorua Tate. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in favour of the nominations, that's fine, but I still think there should be a length of term mentioned in the report, even if it might be reviewed every 12 months, because we can't just keep a position open forever and ever. I believe we should have a term on it.
Do you want to elaborate there, JP?
Your Worship, I'm not sure what the date is either, but this process is that Council recommends who their alternates are, and it goes through to the Joint Committee, Civil Defence Joint Committee, that then endorses it. So if that fixed term contract expires, we would just be again recommending an alternate back through to the Joint Committee for the Regional Civil Defence Committee to check and to confirm as well. So there's no particular problems with the term, because it can be changed and we can recommend through to that Joint Committee.
So these are our recommendations. I'm the member on that CDM committee. So these are our recommendations for those two. Yep. Right. Any further discussion? Councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this case, I will not be participating in the vote. I've had dealings with one of these gentlemen in the past, and I've expressed my reservations to relevant council officers.
Thank you, Councillor Bentley, and that's the right process. So I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of recommendation 3 as written, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Councillor Bentley. Carried. Thank you. Now we move to the summing up of yesterday's meeting on the air quality bylaw. This is, Councillor Gould was lucky to see it. I got home rather late. All right, okay. So the point of, we'll read the recommendation. Air quality bylaw review. This was a lengthy discussion yesterday for those that weren't able to be here, and we reached this point of a recommendation. 1, point of sale replacement of indoor open fires. That Council adopt option 1A, allowing no replacement of solid fuel burners for indoor open fires. 2, point of sale removal of non-complying burners. That Council adopt option 2A, continuing to require removal of non-complying burners and allow replacement solid fuel burners that comply with this bylaw. 3, the new burner rule. That Council adopt option 3A, restricting the installation of new burners to pellet burners. And 4, that a general discussion is provided under Rotorua Air Quality Control bylaw for the installation of solid fuel burners having an emission rate greater than 0.6 grams per kilogram and installation of new burners until 31st of October 2017, that Council adopts the Rotorua Air Quality Control Bylaw incorporating the above decisions. Do I have a
Point of order, Madam
Yes.
Chair. Can I request that we deal with point 3 separately to the other items, because other information has come to light since yesterday?
Certainly. So we'll take, would you prefer, Councillor Kent, that we take them individually? All right. We'll move, okay, that makes sense. Do you wish to speak first to your request?
Well, Madam Chair, I'd be quite happy to move the lot with an amendment to point 3, and that is the removal of the word pellet from the burner option for the new things. The reason for that, whilst I spoke against it yesterday and the motion that I put yesterday was defeated,
Yes.
I have since researched further, and I would like to just read, if I may, just a brief determination. This was Lord Scarman said in Rex versus Inland Revenue Commissioners, 1985, "I must make it clear in my view that the principle of fairness has an important place in the law of judicial review, and that in an appropriate case it is a ground upon which the court can intervene to squash a decision made by a public officer or authority in purporting to exercise of a power conferred by law." This decision has also been upheld by the Court of Lords, that only where the unfairness renders a decision an abuse of power. The issue that we have here is that if we try to confine compliant burners to one particular type of burner and exclude other types of burners where there are many that will comply with the bylaw, we are at grave risk of being seen to be exercising an abuse of power and having this overturned. My recommendation to Council, and I've already discussed it with the Chief Executive, is that if we remove the word pellet and limit it to burners that comply with the 0.6 rule, we are stating loudly and clearly that they must comply with the 0.6 rule. It does not necessarily cause an issue if the Regional Council wishes to continue to stick with the pellet restriction in there, but if it should be challenged, they will be doing the fight over the pellet, not us, and if their decision on the pellet burners was overturned, the fallback position we would already have in place with our bylaw. So that is why I'm strongly suggesting that we remove the word pellet. I can either move the lot with the word removed, but that is my recommendation.
Councillor Kent. No, could we just wait? You can second it. Do you know what you're seconding?
Yes, 1, 2, 4 and 5 is correct, and changing the removing the pallets from number 3, Mr. Chair.
Before we get into this discussion, which I think is valid, do you wish to speak to it, or?
Yes,
Henry?
Your Worship, could I just advise that Henry Weston is here and may be able to actually assist in providing some advice on what's been raised?
That's good. Was the one issue yesterday that we didn't get stuck on, but it was an in-principle decision about the pallet burners. Henry, if you could clarify, particularly for those that weren't here, who didn't hear the discussion.
And look, I'll just be a little bit cautious in my response, but really picking up Councillor Kent's comments around the pallet burner. And I guess from my understanding, and I'll put on a semi-legal hat while not claiming to be a lawyer in this at all, but I guess what the issue we've fundamentally got in front of us is we've got an emission standard and we've got an assumption or a conclusion we've made in here that the only burner that can meet the emission standard is a pallet burner. We've also got a range of information from companies who sell wood burners who make claims they can meet those, and they sell their wood burners on that basis. In addition, we got research from the Regional Council which said, which challenged, I guess, the veracity of those wood burners. So we dropped back to a decision that it should be pallet burners. So I guess the question which goes through my mind, and I think it picks up Councillor Kent's comment, is around that element of fairness and reasonableness, and is it a decision the council could make without putting it to the people who sell wood burners who are claiming they do meet the 0.5, 0.6? We've got research which says probably not, but we haven't put it back to them. So look, I think there's a valid question in there. In terms of fairness, but I will just say again, I'm being a bush lawyer on this. I'm coming into it a bit cold, but I think it's a fair comment, because essentially what the council is doing is saying, yep, we get it, we heard the research, we understand that, therefore we're going to go for this. But there is a pretty fundamental principle in terms of putting information back to people when you're going to make a decision that will adversely affect them. And that hasn't been done. So look, all I'd say is there is a question.
Councillor Hunt.
I guess for me the concerns are really about the airshed for the whole community, and this particular point, the Regional Council would seek to have no new burners in any new builds, like Nelson Airshed 1.
Yeah.
So you've got a bad airshed. You don't want to add any new ones, no matter how good they are. They're still adding to the cumulative effects of poor air quality. And so we pushed the Regional Council to have something in a new build. And they reluctantly agreed to pallets. For me to then open that door wider for other burners is fundamentally contrary to the principles of getting the airshed cleaner. So I couldn't support. I totally hear what Councillor Kent has said, and I'm really pleased that he's brought this legal quandary to us to work through. But I could not support new burners, regardless of how well they meet the standard in a new build. There are so many options for heating a new home, and many new homes that do put a fire in barely turn them on. And other than for aesthetic value. And for aesthetic value, there are plenty of really attractive gas lookalikes. We're not talking about those, as was canvassed yesterday, who are in the poorer suburbs, or those who are unable to get firewood, or who have an old burner. We've covered those. They're allowed to replace them. This is for a brand new home. And yes, we're limiting an individual's choice on a brand new home, because the collective good of our airshed is what this bylaw is about. So I could not support that in its current. If we take out pallet, then for me, we go back to no new burners in new buildings, in any new build, full stop. And I'll move that way if it comes to that point.
Donaldson, on this amendment we're speaking to.
Yeah, I just had a question of JP, who's heading in the direction of Rosemary. Your Worship, before I speak to it. So I'll just wait till I've handed it.
Councillor Bentley had his hand up too, so you wish to speak to it, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is becoming just a matter of choice in that eventually, of course, it's all going to be irrelevant because we're going to be on geothermal anyway. But with the new technologies and advancing technologies that we're experiencing in our lifetime, who's to say that they can't invent something that will attain the emission rates that we so desire? Yes, let's not forget about new technology.
Yes, so, Your Worship, my question before I speak to it, through you to JP, is if Council was to move the way Councillor Kent's suggesting and remove pellets, when Regional Council bring out their rule, will that, what shape will that do, or what will be the effect of that on this particular point?
It's a good point, and I think the lead advisor who spoke yesterday was at pains to point out that their intention would be to prohibit wood burners in new builds. So her perspective was that this rule, if it was allowed with removing the word pellet and allowing wood burners, would be for a finite time, and she had suggested that they would be notifying in October. So we would be in a situation where our bylaw was in conflict then with what they had established through the regional rules. If I go one step further, if you remember that table we had yesterday when we were going through the options, their recommendation, I think, and I just checked across with Rosemary on it, was that if we did want to provide a window before those rules were notified, their preference was that we actually remain silent in our bylaw on the new builds. So rather than adjusting the words, to actually have no reference to it, so that way it doesn't create a situation where a member of the public who was considering a new build would be potentially seeing two conflicting sets of rules that they were looking at. And probably the third option for us was potentially on the back of, if it was to change the wording, we should probably make a reference to say that we would probably need to update our bylaw when the Regional Council had been through their rules notification and hearing process. So we should, in that case, bring forward a view that we would need to, if the change that's been proposed was made, we will also need to review our bylaw when the Regional Council rules have been passed through, because we will be in conflict through our bylaw with those rules. So it would just move our bylaw review forward to synchronise with that other document.
Thank you. So with that said, I would vote against removing the word pellet from the recommendation. I agree with everything Councillor Hunt said. This is a cumulative effect. It's a health issue. If we're going to have accelerated growth of new builds in the Rotorua urban airshed area, then the clear results of surveys was that yes, there are burners that have a lower emission rate than pellet burners, but they're not operated that way, and the emissions you get are far greater than pellet burners. So, this was a concession to Rotorua Lakes Council from the Regional Council through the Joint Working Party to allow pellet burners in new builds, and I don't think we should be pushing Regional Council on this point. So I would vote against the motion.
Maxwell. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Your Worship, and you'll appreciate that I wasn't here to listen to the discussions yesterday, and I thank you, Your Worship, and fellow councillors who put the effort into the discussions, and I apologise for being absent yesterday. But I will be supporting Councillor Kent's amendment. I don't think we're up for thousands of new builds. I'd like to think we were, but I don't believe we will be, and I think it's actually a misuse of our position as a council in really steering new homeowners to go down a certain track. I don't believe that that's our job. We've heard that there are wood burners that comply, but we're told, well, there's an authority that thinks they don't comply. They have to comply. And that's what they're certified, and they say that they're certified and they meet compliance. So I will be supporting this amendment. I listened to the opinion given, the legal opinion given in the case law that you quoted, Councillor Kent, and I actually agree with it. I agree with that. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be voting against this because we had such a thorough discussion yesterday, and for me, I'm sorry that Councillor Sturt's not here, who I thought contributed quite well in yesterday's corridor, and thanks to our chairperson, she allowed him many times to speak, but with his knowledge in this area and in the field of real estate and in the areas that we're concerned about, I thought he contributed tremendously. And I do recall even on this, he quoted us to some page, and I was trying to find it, but he also spoke strongly in retaining it to being to pallet burners and that. So I'm going to stick to the where I supported yesterday. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we'll be supporting Councillor Kent's recommendation. I'm concerned with the central government's laws and this bylaw. You know, they've got one law for some people, and our bylaw might be an objection to a number of retailers and wholesalers. Because wood burners at the moment, we were advised yesterday, the rate has gone from 0.5 to 0.6. And we were advised from the Bay of Plenty Regional Council that there were a number of wood burners which imply with the 0.6 reading. I'm thinking possibly in the future we're going to have wood burners which are going to be better than 0.6, which means that this bylaw will rule out U builds only to put in these sophisticated U burners. And we've got to keep the houses warm for the people of the future. And that's one of our 2030 visions. Make the places warm, make them comfortable, and we just need to do it correctly for our residents of Rotorua.
It's going to add my penny worth here, particularly for those that weren't here. I understand your intent, Councillor Kent, about choice, actually, and market choice. But we have been waiting for Christchurch, which is a very similar airshed, because it's in a caldera, remarkably similar, not near the coast. So Hastings is slightly different. We've been waiting for them for their best practice evidence about ultra-efficient low burners, and it hasn't come through. The only burners that we can put our hands on our heart with, whether we like them or not in terms of market choices, pallet burners. I trust our representatives on this working party, and that was Councillor Donaldson. And I congratulate you. You didn't get much yesterday, much recognition, but we got a concession in about our new builds that we really do care about warmth and homes that match people's needs, because that's one of our goals. But we do not have the evidence before us that there are other ultra-efficient low burners that will help us improve the airshed in our district. And so I will be voting against Councillor Kent's recommendation. we've got to be careful when we set up working parties. We put experts on. You're absolutely right, Councillor Maxwell, in that one view through Councillor Sturt did get heard by the working party. That's great. He was talking about fuel poverty and warm homes for our people. The right people put input in to this bylaw. I can see it being quite muddled now if we vote to open it out further to include other ultra-efficient low burners that we can't put a market guarantee on. So I'll be voting against it, but you get the right of reply. Convince us, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to challenge just a couple of statements that have just recently been made. The first one is to state that we will be in conflict with the Regional Council. That is not the case. If we remove the word pallet, all we're doing is we are enforcing the 0.6 limit, which is what the Regional Council wants to bring in. We are complying with exactly what they want, and we are saying loudly and clearly, yes, that's the direction we want everyone to go. That the Regional Council wants to further restrict it to pallet burners means that if that is challenged on the basis of unfair restraint of trade, which I believe it certainly is, and quite honestly, I'd happily take this case in a court of law myself, and I think I'd have a pretty strong chance of winning, then we're in a situation where the onus will be on the Regional Council, who has the ammunition, has the evidence to be able to fight that case. We don't. If we step in now and bring in the overly onerous rule with the pallet burners in it, then it is us that are creating the restraint of trade, not the Regional Council. Therefore, it will be us that will be challenged, not the Regional Council. That is the danger point that we've got. The second issue I'd like to bring up is the suggestion was made that the Regional Council will prefers to do nothing rather than remove the pallet burners. But there is a major flaw to that, as I've just discussed with JP. If we do that, the fallback position is the status quo takes place, and we're stuck with a 1.5 limit, not a 0.6. So we have to bring in the 0.6 rule now. If we remove the word pallet now, we are bringing in the 0.6 now. We are complying with what the Regional Council wants. But if the Regional Council goes ahead with the word pallet, then if there is a challenge to that, it is their problem, their fight. They've got the ammunition to support it. And we're supporting it because we've said it's got to be the 0.6, and fine, they've said make it even more restrictive, not an issue. If we do nothing, we've got a problem. Firstly, our bylaw expires. Secondly, if we take the track of saying, oh, we don't make a ruling on this, then we fall back to 1.5 and we haven't achieved anything at all. In fact, we're contravening what the Regional Council wants. So I very strongly urge, in the interests of what we're trying to achieve, which is to get the air quality standards improved, that we go at this stage with the removal of the word pallet. Then, should it be necessary, we can soon review the bylaw again to re-include the word pallet if it has been proven that that is what the Regional Council has implemented, and if it has been proven that there isn't a restraint of trade or a risk of our bylaw being overturned. I think it is the only prudent way to go.
Here, that's good logic. I wonder here if we need to pause and take a little bit of advice because before we enter into putting this motion. Chief Executive.
I think Councillor Kent and both Councillor Kent and JP have alluded to the fact that we have got an issue with this, in that if we do pause at this particular time, we end up with no bylaw in place because the current bylaw expires, which would put us into quite a difficult place and significantly worse than if we were to proceed on any sort of basis. So I don't see that there's an option not but to continue with this. That seems to me to be the prudent way forward. You've heard the advice from Mr. Weston as to the potential legal view here, but I think at the end of the day the council now has a political decision to make as to taking into account the issues that have been raised with regards to fairness with manufacturers from a legal standpoint of view, and the requirements of natural justice really to some degree would apply here. So there's that on one side. On the other hand, you do have actually, as I think has been put, the concerns with regards to the collaboration with the regional council, the fact that the regional council is at the end of the day driven an amendment or an accommodation is for new builds, and what does this signal to the council? So these are really political issues that I think do need to be determined by the council.
Received. Carol, can you put up the amendment as proposed by Councillor Kent and seconded by to remove? Right. I'm going to put that. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Chadwick. My question is, what happens if we decided to have no burners for new builds legally? Because there are many rules, and I hear what Councillor O'Carroll-Tate says about, restricting people's free choice, but there are many rules around the world. Swimming pool fences are one that restrict people's free access and free choice for public safety and for public health and well-being. And car seats, we could be here all day naming the number of rules that are put in place. Waterways, we're doing them ourselves with riparian planting and setbacks. So I just wonder what would happen legally if we said no burners until such time, and I totally understand Councillor Bentley with the new units coming on stream, and I would hope we get to a point where we can allow new units coming in. That would be my preference, but we're not there yet. The airshed's not clean enough yet. So I just wondered what would happen legally if we went no new burners in new builds.
If I can answer that, Madam Chair.
Well, I think the lawyer position might be better, but you make the comment.
The comment is we'd have to go back to public consultation because we haven't consulted with the public on that issue.
Henry might want to just contribute at the tail end of this, and I just checked again with Rosemary. If you recall, the proposed bylaw actually went out with a view which was a prohibition on new burners of any form. So it has been through, so it went out as a draft, and the concession that was being made as a result of that was to consider the pellet burners. So it has been out for consultation in the draft, and that's why we came back, or the regional council, having listened to the working party, considered pellets and or the other forms of heating that could go in. So it has been out. Now my presumption then is that's what has occurred with the Hastings bylaw, and where that was raised yesterday, that they have a prohibition in place for new burners in new builds. So I think that the kind of question about the natural justice and the fairness issue has I suppose to a degree has been canvassed, but I think Councillor Kent has raised the particular point. His view was, if including the words gives us a view that whilst this bylaw is in place, and again the regional council has signalled they would then probably move to a prohibition in their rules, and the key for what Councillor Kent was trying to achieve then was that silence equals a 1.5 default, where this approach is whilst any new builds occur up until when the regional council has been through their process, would at least be at the 0.6. So there is a consistency of a good burners coming in. So I think, but as you heard yesterday, that the regional council's preference was to accept that, the 1.5, because there wouldn't necessarily be that many over the next 2 or 3 months. before they notified. So that their preference would be to not have to have the bylaw reviewed because it was in conflict and because it was silent, versus I think the intent here, which is for every burner going in, would be a good burner at the 0.6 level, which is being proposed. So I think that's why the Chief Executive signalled that comment about this as a political decision for you to make.
Or the working party member, I'll give you
Well,
the last right of
I
reply.
think we argued it well and had a great discussion yesterday, Your Worship, but I just wanted to say that if Councillor Hunt was considering, and I'm not quite sure how the numbers are around the room, it's going to be close, but if Councillor Hunt was to move an amendment to the motion to completely ban any burners in new home, which would be in new builds, then I'd be prepared to second that and test that. But I think that'd be a sad way to go after we've done so much work through the working party and got this concession from Regional Council. So, you know, my preference is to stick with pellet burners as an option.
Sorry,
We're starting to go round and round.
Yeah.
JP, you've got a clarification
Yeah, look, Your Worship,
that might help.
I just, I thought the timing was that there was a full prohibition and the concession was done after the submissions. It actually was a concession that was made into the draft, which was to include pallets within that. So what we went out to the public on was as it was written, which was to allow pallets. So my apologies. I thought they'd gone out. Their original view was a complete prohibition, but they'd actually put that into the draft that they would allow pallets. So that was how. So we have consulted on that, but we could come back from that, and that's what's been recommended.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a difficult one, but the issue we've got is we can't fall back to the no option because we would have to go out to the public again first before we could bring that in. So that's a no-no. We can't go there, unfortunately. Procedurally, the other thing is the motion has been put, so we actually have to determine the motion as has been put and seconded. The issue comes down to, are we in conflict with the Regional Council or not? I don't believe we are at all, because we are enforcing 0.6 straight away, which is what the Regional Council is trying to enforce. We are holding off on what we think is a questionable legal issue as to whether you can restrict it to pellet burners. And I personally heard yesterday that there were numerous burners that weren't pellet burners that the Regional Council admitted did comply with 0.6. You'd be opening up a bucket of worms and a massive legal dispute, because I tell you what, if there's half a dozen manufacturers, all of whom suddenly can't sell their devices in our area, they're just going to gang together and look out. We're on the end of a lawsuit. And the trouble is, we're going to be fighting it on behalf of the Regional Council, because we don't even have the information and all the things to support the decision. So I believe the only safe and sensible thing to do at this point in time is we have to implement the bylaw, otherwise it expires, so we've got to do something. We can't say no burners, because we'd have to go out to the public again, so that's not an option. If we leave in pellet burners, we're going to face the legal challenge should one come, and we're opening a bucket of worms. However, if we go as I've suggested, and just remove the word pellet, we are implementing 0.6 straight away. Silence would implement 1.5 again. We don't want that. So if we go ahead with 0.6 now, we have the option to review later and put pellet back in if that is legally possible. It's the only safe way to go, and I urge the councillors to consider that, please.
Going to put the motion as amended that deletes the word pellet burners, that Council adopt option 3A, restricting the installation of new burners to compliant solid fuel burners. All those in favour of that amendment, please say aye. Contrary? No. We'd better have a show of hands. All those in favour, please show their hands. Against? The motion is lost. No, it's not. It's carried. It's carried. It's going to be interesting. Right. Oh, that's right. That was just that point. Now we need to put 2, 4. We've done the new burner roll. 2, 4, 5. All right. Do I have a mover? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to put the motions 2, 4 and 5. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Good debate, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Staff reports the council representation on other entities, Rotorua Geothermal Liaison Group. A mover and a seconder that the report council representation on other entities, Rotorua Geothermal Liaison Group, be received. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Gould. No. Could you please let Councillor Donaldson say what he has been quite happy to lead? Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm happy to move point 1 and point 2 of the recommendation with appointing Councillor Bentley to the Geothermal Liaison Group.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'm going to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? And it's going to be interesting. And well done, Peter. And I just want to say, when we began this term of council, some people felt that their expertise was not utilised fully. And I assured those members that there will be some responsibilities that will come out of this term of council. And that's a very good fit. And I'm sure you'll do very well. What we need in there, we'll have to talk about it later, but we need the Rotorua position put, and I'm absolutely sure you will with your passion. So congratulations. We move now to resolution to go into public excluded to advise that and I wish to advise there are 3 items: plan change 10 appeal, audit and risk committee appointments, appointment of Te Tato or Te Arawa nominee for the strategy, policy and finance committee, and tender approval for the Waipa State Mill realignment. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Rokawa-Tate. Seconded, Councillor Kent. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary?